with my students the analogy of a vehicle. So sometimes we could feel like we're in the trunk of the vehicle and somebody's hauling us to somewhere and we have no idea where we're going or what's going on, and we can feel very unsafe. Then there's kind of the backseat of the vehicle where, um, hey, I'm along for the ride. I know what's happening. Maybe I can get my parents to tune the radio station or something, but I don't have a lot of control. I'm still just a member of the traveling party. And then we get up to that passenger side where you can access some more controls of the vehicle. And if you really wanted to, you could take over the ride, but typically that's not what happens. And then it evolves into the driver's seat where I'm able to make decisions about what's happening, how fast we're going, where I'm headed. And we found working with young people, the closer we can get them to the driver's seat, the higher amount of engagement and buy-in that we're going to get down the road. So today, I'm not presenting any novel ideas. I'm actually going to be using some materials from an organization called West Michigan PBL Works, which is part of the Ottawa Area Intermediate School District. It's a team that I partner with, and it's a team that I've also contributed to over the years as an educator to be able to provide project and place-based learning resources to educators. And within their kind of uh, collection of resources, one of the things they have is sort of a toolkit to help you engage students in the process of making a decision about a big question. So we're going to take an overview through that process. I'm going to type the link in right now while I'm thinking about it. And then at some point in time, you can go and there is a plethora of materials in there. And then after this training, if you are curious about a resource or how do I use this or where do I get more information about this, I'm pretty well versed in it and I can help support you afterwards if you wanted to send me an email. I'd be happy to clarify or put you in the right direction. So I'm going to put my email in the chat right away too. Um, so that's kind of the overview. I'm going to quick switch to sharing here, and we'll get kind of the overview presentation going. Let me just pull this. There we go. There we go. All right. So ideally, you all can see kids on a tire swing, smiling and having a good time. Give me a thumbs up if some of you are seeing that or think we got it. Okay. All right. Um, so I first wanted to, and I'm gonna shrink my Zoom here real quick. Whenever we gather with MASP, I like to review our land acknowledgement. Um, we want to acknowledge our current experiences in two pandemics respectfully and the people of steward the land we occupy. Um, I think some of our people have been brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in the hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. And so we just want to also think of the legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today and continue to uncover such truths in our events. By now, you have probably noticed that I am a white male, and I understand that that comes with generations of privilege that I have not necessarily earned, but have been given unto me. And my life calling and the work that I do and these type of things is to be able to break those privilege cycles. And one of the ways that I'm doing that is using that privilege to open doors of opportunity to lift and raise up underrepresented students, community members, adults, professionals, and young professionals so that they may have a seat at the table as well. So that's a little bit about my personal feelings about who I am, what I can control and what I can't, and what I'm doing with the things that I have that I don't deserve. So, I work for the ODC network, and our job is to change education here through several opportunities. We have a nature center where kids come out from different schools and join us for field trips. We have community programs, we have summer camps, and then we have what I'm involved with, which is the Education Network. And we work with schools throughout West Michigan to help provide better opportunities for kids in those schools. So this is kind of our heat map where our work is. And the work that we're doing is to work together to change where learning happens, transforming methods of learning, and building meaningful relationships in our community. So sometimes that can look like this. This is within walking distance of one of our schools, and so there are opportunities within our community to give kids really exciting and engaging experiences. But sometimes it's also right in their schoolyard. So before we get too deep into youth voice, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this golden circle, and this is a Simon Sinek diagram. So at the heart is the why, and that's really what motivates our youth and understanding why. And you probably have that question sometimes in irreverence of, hey, why do I have to do this or why are we here? As much as that can sometimes our students behave that way or ask that question, it's truly founded in a core of wanting to discover their purpose and why they're doing what they're doing and why they are where they are at. And I think we have to take a moment to remember that all behavior is communication. And so when a young person is pushing on our why, that's okay because we want them to know why we and they do what they do and what is our purpose. And then outside of that, once we introduce the why, we're able to think about the how. And how do you do what you do? And how do you go about your business? And then lastly, on the outside is the what. And it seems like many times in programming, we focus on the what, and then we forget about the how. And then sometimes because of the tyranny of the urgent, we don't address the why. And so just from an engagement standpoint, if we did nothing more today for implementation, um, take away, always make sure we're centered in our why and kids understand that at a developmentally appropriate um, way and we're able to communicate and then we can get to the how we're going to do it and then what we do becomes more relevant. So some of the work today we're going to talk about is part of design thinking. There's lots of companies that you can get free resources from or you can pay. So there's the Decision Lab, IDOU, the Stanford D School. I've read all of their papers and kind of sifted through opportunities and resources. And I think our group here in West Michigan, Future Prep, has done a nice job of kind of synthesizing some things into the resource page. So what I'm sharing is not the only way to do this. There's lots of different resources out there. I'm just kind of sharing how I've been successful with young people in the process of going through design thinking. So here's another way. You saw um, the okay, Bob, look at the wonderful nature area. Of course, that's going to be very engaging and kids are going to be excited about that. But we can also rethink our schoolyards and our outside spaces that are adjacent. So in some of these, you can see a playground in the background. We're at a pavilion table. Kids are back on a tennis court. So it doesn't have to be this magical environment to get kids thinking about engagement and how they can become part of that driver's seat initiative. So, what I'm going to talk a bit about today is this notion called the creative sequence. Um, the creative sequence is the process in which you can take young people through um, a journey of answering a big question. So, if we think about youth engagement and we think about getting them involved, one of the ways that we can do is rather than trying to um, start a program or start an experience leading with um, this is the solution. Here's what we're going to do. Backing up the process and walking through with our students the whole idea of answering the question. So instead of planning the activity, you can plan the plan to develop the activity. And I really like this. And we've done it from adult all the way down to preschool in modified versions, in different scales. So I really like this because it allows me to explore two really important principles that I found as an educator and a leader. One is we learn to work together by working together. If you ever get a chance to do a workshop with me or something like that, there will not be an icebreaker. And I don't like them. I'll participate if a facilitator is asking me to, but they make me feel uncomfortable. I like to learn to work together by working together with people. And so that's one of the principles. And then we learn the work by doing the work. It's important that we think about ways to engage in learning through the act of doing. And those are a couple things that have helped me along my journey. But in this creative sequence, there's really six phases, but I want to focus on five today. The first is observation. So it's you posing a big question. Um, what should we do during our after school activity for the month of March? Whatever your arbitrary big giant question. And then um, in order to answer that question, we need to establish what are we going to investigate, and then what do we need to learn or uncover. And so that phase takes us through just like learning about our problem. Next is investigating. How are we going to investigate this? How are we going to gain additional empathy? How are we going to find out if what we're thinking about actually has a solution? And how can we learn more or get smart about our topic or our big question? Then we get into this kind of incubation stage, which we start to generate ideas. We generate a lot of ideas and then we synthesize them down. We kind of fuss around with them and turn them into opposite ideas just to get a large pool of thought going based upon our creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. Then we get to the solution stage. What ideas might work best and which ones will we choose? A lot of times in problem solving, we have a tendency, it's the tyranny of the urgent, to jump right from that, like, okay, what's the big problem or what's the question? Super, let's get a solution together here today so we can get rolling with what happens. And to shortchange ourselves with that investigation and incubation time often leads to solutions that may not work at all or work as well. So that solution stage is kind of the thing you're always pushing back, but you don't want to push it back too long because you don't want to spend 10 months planning something that's going to last for 1 week. And then at the end, a process of validation. Do people like this? Does the solution address the issue? So gaining some information from what we have been able to do. And then afterwards is always it's good to reflect with people that you've been through a process. Think about areas that were challenging, areas that you'd want to redesign, areas that worked really well, etc. So kind of getting into that observation stage, this is where sometimes I'll just unveil a big topic or question with kids and make it exciting. We share a big quote: when the winds of change blows, some build walls, other build windmills, to get them thinking about different ways to look at a problem. And then this is where I like to have some sort of entry event that's fun and exciting and kind of gets kids going. So let's say I was going to have fifth graders co-designing recreation events in April. Um, I would want to have some sort of entry event that would give them, maybe we do um, like a recreation speed dating where we try a bunch of different recreation activities for a really short period of time, make it exciting, make it fun, maybe have some food afterwards, because that starts to um, push back the why do we need to know this, or why do we have to do this, or why are we asking this question. because if you start with something fun, that helps you get to that why of like, well, because when we do this in March, we want to have a really good time. And I think it's important to test out ideas through action throughout your process. So those are some key phases of the observation stage. And there's a ton of resources available. And we can talk about this at the end for sure. So I want to be kind of a little bit shorter on the information transfer side and maybe get into some scenarios or questions. So these are a bit vague, but they're backed by some really great resources that you can access. So after we kind of do that observation, we do an entry event, we kind of learn more about our topic, question, or problem. We're going to dive into that investigation stage. So when you start to develop your power of empathy and imagination, the whole world opens up to you. We're going to be asking probably a bunch of questions about our question. We also want to take some time out to figure out what our kids actually know and what they need to know. Oftentimes, I notice students of all ages have a far better understanding than something than maybe even I do. And so it's important to take inventory of what kids already know, honor that, and use that as a launching point for how their solution should feel or look. And who this is during this investigation time, like, who are we creating this for? Is it for ourselves? Is it for someone else? And then during this time, we want to gain empathy, which is a super important thing for students to do. That's also a life skill to understand how others might be impacted positively and negatively about our problem and our potential solutions. And then we want to, this is a great chance to maybe get some of our, once we can get kids hooked on an idea or a problem, they might engage in some reading or research that they may not normally want to do because they're starting to take curiosity in this topic. And this is where I've seen many of my reluctant readers all of a sudden quietly, and they'll still do it a little bit secretly because they don't want everybody to know that they're off reading somewhere to come up with ideas. So this is a great time to maybe support and scaffold your students with helping them find resources, especially the younger ones when they're not used to exploring an open-ended question. This is where if you don't provide a little bit of support, you'll find your kids going off task because as much as they may want to find out about their topic, if you're like, hey, just go research, they'll often get to a dead end and they don't have that push through of like, when I'm trying to find something on the internet and it fails, a lot of our young people just quit and they'll revert to social media doom scrolling rather than that push through to find another resource and that next step to find the answer. So this is where I like to provide quite a bit of support for kids. Um, then we get into, oh, hang on a second. Then we get into our incubation stage and we look for like generating some ideas. This is where the sticky notes and the boards can come out, and we'll look at different volumes of ideas. And one of the things that I like is welcome to the third century, folks. The third century is about ideas. So coming up with really cool ways to engage kids to solve this problem. So once they've kind of gotten smart about their topic and they've collaborated where they're going, they want to can get into the stage of imagining ideas and all the possible solutions that might address their question. So this is a sometimes where I'll need to provide a little bit of control on prioritizing ideas. So this is not actual money, but this is a metaphorical way of like, hey, I'm going to give you $100, and for all your ideas so far, I want you to price them from your most valuable one to your least valuable one, um, in terms of your topic or your possible idea to solve your problem. And that will help kids begin to filter and sort some things. But just in the ideation phase, there's so many different protocols that you can pull on. One of my favorites is Okay, let's come up with some ideas to solve the problem if we literally only had $10 to spend. Let's come up with some ideas to solve the problem if we had $300 to spend. And then just for the sake of having fun, what if we had an unlimited budget? What would we do? And that's where kids age 6 to 20 usually mentioned a roller coaster or a water park in almost every design thinking process that I've been, and they find a way to fit it in. So there's different ways to open up different creative channels based upon adding constraints, but then also beginning to kind of get kids thinking of saying, well, solitaire might not be like it's a possible idea, but is it extremely valuable in kind of the direction we're holding? And you could have some voting and things like that. So then once we kind of gotten through our, hang on just a second, our investigation stage, then I like to get into my creation of solutions. So when we start to narrow down, um, hey, we're going to have 5 really good ideas. Then we're going to use what's called the Nuff test, and we'll rank these um, on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 on is it new, is it useful, and is it feasible. So this one was a project that we did about um, uh, normalizing that bats are part of our community. So you could see that they had a Batmobile, and that was pretty new. They felt like it was fairly feasible, but they didn't think it would be that useful. A Facebook group, not new, somewhat useful, but hey, we could create this in like 5 minutes. Bat towers, um, selling bat fertilizer as awareness campaign. You could see that was our winner. Nobody's done that. It's very useful because we could put it in our gardens and it's somewhat feasible. And then sponsoring people or having people sponsor a bat colony. And so here's where we started to get some hierarchy of our solutions. And then sometimes we kind of have to, if some kid was really passionate about the Facebook group, maybe find a way to tie that in as a subset of our solution, or possibly say, hey, you know what? We love a good Facebook group, but that one's just not going to work for this time. So keep that in mind for something down the road. Be mindful of when you say goodbye to a child or young person's idea that they may have some feelings about that. And if you can walk through that process with them, it's always much more beneficial. And then the validation stage, allowing kids to have that voice and what works and what doesn't through action. This is where prototyping and trying things out is very important for young people because good ideas need landing gears as well as wings. Um, so at this point, check my time. Pull our screen back up. And 1 second here. Um, so I wanted to kind of go back, we can go back through and look at some protocols or if there are questions. Um, I just wanted to be able to open this up to some discussion about the process or maybe the challenges that we've had when engaging people in a decision-making process or this sequence and kind of see where this goes. Um, this is always the part where I've done several of these now, and each time I'm a little bit, I anticipate, leaving time for discussion. Um, but then it always seems to fill with something much richer than what I could have provided by just talking at you more. So I think Larry can help me out a little bit if some questions come in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute and start a discussion. I'm happy to hear what you think about this, or if you have some experiences, or if you have some failures, or if you want to hear about a time that I did something. I'm happy to do that now. So Kristen asked about age groups, and so we have um, from a process standpoint, we can start with kids in early childhood, fours, threes a little bit. We have had this program with elementary kids that we call Sunday School. It's a community program that Future Prep runs to help teachers learn how to do this. And so we paired our lower elementary kids up with ice cream shops. And at Sunday school, teachers would come into the ice cream shop and um, I can go back through the slides too. And yes, we will share the slides at the end. So they go into the ice cream shop, they get to taste some different flavors, and then the ice cream shop will ask them to design the flavor of the year for them. And then the sort of that flavor actually then gets made, or that dessert gets made, and they sell it as they market it as like, hey, these kids came in, they designed this flavor of the summer. And elementary kids love that. Ice cream shops are usually pretty open because if you can get kids during the day in an ice cream shop, it's a really cool time because ice cream shops are not typically as busy during the day, so they have a little bit more capacity. So young people um, all really like that one. So yeah, there's a variety all the way up through. I've done this with adults. I did a church group and we led them through this process because they wanted to figure out. They noticed that their church population was starting to become more toward the older membership and not toward the younger membership. So we walked through a process of um, rethinking how we can address the issue of engaging younger people in church participation. Because I think the modus operandi is we get together and then usually the music people are like, we need to have cooler music, and then um, they sort of end with that. So we actually went out into the community and we talked to people about what would interest them in that type of experience and solved it from this. So a lot of variation there. Other questions or thoughts?
Bob, I have a question.
You bet.
Oops. You work with K through 12?
Well, our organization has early childhood as well. So we have four preschools. So I help our preschool team out. We do some consulting support for preschools in West Michigan. But
Okay,
yeah, all the way through higher ed and adult.
that was my question because I did see your name and I do share the same licenses as you. I work with the Quality Recognition Improvement System with the state of Michigan, and this was one of the questions that came up about a year or so ago in the self reflection with the youth. That was one of the new indicators. So I'm glad that you've shared this with them because this was one of the new ones, and I'm not gonna lie, you explained it a lot more beautifully than I would have.
Oh, well, we're all critical of our own way of explaining something, which helps continue to drive us. But the reflection piece is important. And to tell you the truth, I'm a big fan of reflection with kids in real time. Especially, I have an issue with anonymous reflection. I think this is just my opinion in my practice that when I start to give kids a chance for anonymous reflection, given how sharing whatever you think on social media and then running away from it is it's a perpetuated phenomena that I don't know is best for humanity. So it's very important in the reflection process for me to engage young people in the real time of having that protocol in place to be like, okay, let's have a reflection on this. I even do it with my basketball team that I coach of like, all right, hey, we've had 2 weeks of practice. What's gone well? What do we want to get better at? What has been frustrating for you? And things that I don't notice will come up and they'll be like, well, Bob, you explained it this way and Coach Ken explains it the other way, and that's hard for us. Where if I wait until the end of the season and I give the traditional anonymous feedback survey, some kids probably going to take one kid didn't play enough, so they're going to take a pretty hard stab at me. The kid who was just missing, not understanding the code switching between the two adults is maybe burned out and they don't care anymore. And I might not even hear that. So we'll do different fishbowl protocols. We'll have kids, we actually teach kids how to write a little bit of feedback or share something. I used to think, but now I know there's just lots of resources to get kids in a comfort space of reflecting without having it be like um, a kill shot and run away when they are providing anonymous feedback, because that often happens in our world. So that's some of my thoughts on reflection there.
Thank you so much.
So I would say this is probably one of the $1 million questions. How do we intentionally include youth and families as part of OST advocacy and or policymaking efforts in collaboration with adult staff or advocates? So I don't do a whole lot of the policy making side of things. We'll do a little bit of lobbying with our elected officials, and we weigh in when we're asked about things. We have some team members that are part of a outdoor education curriculum uh, coalition trying to get some things built into early childhood and early elementary to be able to make sure kids get a chance to go outside. But on the programmatic out of school time side of it, it's very important that we uh, create specific programs just to address uh, youth and family engagement. So, for instance, right now, there's a little community that's made up of about 70% underrepresented families. Greater than 50% of those families are considered to be at either in poverty or asset limited income constrained employed ALICE families. So I wrote a grant for those folks to um, weigh in with our high school students that are looking for some additional credit, college credit, or recovery credit. So this grant is going to put those high school students into the driver's seat of working with community members, because this is kind of a rural area. So the little town is kind of the heart of where it is, but there could be somebody 15 miles south that is not able to engage with any sort of out of school time or community events, um, that because of the issue with getting to town, the logistics with getting to town. And so we're trying to figure out ways to be able to bring community engagement into rural areas. And I think the same could be said for urban areas, because there's different neighborhoods where kids, young people, adults have a hard time moving around to be able to access opportunities because of how opportunity zones are or not set up. So it's not necessarily a rural only issue. So I like to write in ways for engaging my older students in solving problems for the broader community. And some of that leads to then career pathways by figuring out what their aptitudes and interests are. For our youth programs, family engagement is a huge focus that we put on. And it's difficult because of the logistics of life, but we're ever improving ways. And I found food is the great, um, it's the great equalizer. It allows us to be able to connect with people in another way. So we do a lot with meals. And then I think one thing that's been transformative for us has been home visits. When our young people get to have us in their home and our families are vulnerable to be able to welcome us into their home, um, relationships are built that are sometimes life lasting and life changing. And then when you're in someone's home, there's just something unique about when you ask them a question, the type of answer you get versus inviting them to your center or to your school. It's kind of like the home game versus away game. So many different things, but it's very important to include young people in different facets of not only designing for themselves, but designing for their broader community when it's appropriate. Great question. What else do we have? We still have probably 14 minutes. I would love to hear any of your wonderings. We could break down into like, hey, what are some things that you've done in investigating a problem, or maybe you have something you want kids to like, hey, we're trying to design this. What would you do in this instance? I kind of call that the stump the chump section of the presentation where
Actually,
you can throw me something.
that aligns with the question that I had. I wanted
Yeah.
to know if you all had any videos of you all doing this in practice in real time, so we can actually see how it's done from a visual perspective to see how we can best implement it.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'll have to do some digging through because this is a multi organizational collaboration. So I'll have to ask our the broader team and also look through what we're doing with our teachers because we work with 32 different schools, and this is one of the things that we do with schools to see what we have for videos of these protocols. I know we have them pretty well written out um, in the manuals or in lessons and resources that we have, but I'm not sure how much video we do have. But that's a good idea and maybe a thought for the future. I mean, one of the challenges is just making sure that the video is high quality and everybody's got a release and all of that stuff.
Thank you.
How do you feel about assigning specific programming roles or job assignments to youth before or during programs is an effective way to promote leadership and agency at a young age? So, um, I think Zachary asked that. Zach, could you give me a little more clarification, or maybe we can get some depth on that so I kind of hit the answer that you're looking for?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So, something that's I feel is really common um, for a lot of OST programs is finding ways that youth feel like they are intentionally involved in the planning um, of programs and opportunities to put those ideas that some of the ones that you had mentioned throughout your presentation into practice. And
Mm-hmm.
so, do you feel that allowing youth to have a specific role, such as, hey, I'm on the planning team for an upcoming project or event, or I'm involved in creating maybe some of the artwork for promoting or marketing a project or program. Do you feel like that's an effective way to allow youth more opportunities for leadership or agency?
Yeah, for sure. Let me even I'm gonna pull something here. Um, I think it's super important to find out um, what the kids' aptitudes and interests are. Um, so we have developed a few protocols. One is called values cards. So there's a deck of values for each student, and they divide them into 3 piles. Hey, this value is definitely me. This value is not me. And this value is maybe me. And then in groups of 4 to 6, the kids talk about their values and what's important to them. And then we start to like build their roles around some of their values, as well as some of their interests. And I think for me, it's been important rather than just randomly assigning jobs and tasks to really get to know what my kids are interested in, young people are interested in, or what they value, and then this protocol matches up uh, pretty well to that. To being able to then translate that into like providing some team roles. So if you're going to get into design thinking, you might have there's different ways to look at it. We have some resources there, and there are other resources to okay, who on our team is going to be really good at this type of work, and you can help establish some of those roles through the time they spend in the protocols, and you can also assign some duties based upon the information that you get, and that's a way of thinking about it as well. So there's just a lot of different ways to consider that. Hey, on the note of um, videos, I don't know how many videos we have, but I'm going to show you how the protocol is um, mapped out. So if you go to this protocols examples page that the group has put together, this one's called Hopes, Fears, and Norms. It's been contributed by a teacher named Amy Van Allsburg at Lakewood Elementary at West Ottawa. So um, creating a safe environment for your teams will help them build better projects and solutions. This is some of that beginning work. Some thoughts from the educator are included. Some thoughts from the students that she had, and then a little bit about her as an educator. So it kind of takes you through, even though it's not a video, it takes you through an empathetic experience of how this teacher or facilitator used that. And we have this many of those done for each of the different process. So that's pretty cool. So, and some of them may have some video clips, um, but that's sort of
This is
how they've
awesome.
arranged it.
Where can I
Yeah.
find this?
I put the link to the PBL network in the chat.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, it's a project through the Ottawa Area ISD, and Nicole Gittler and her team at Feature Prep. So here's the group. It's West Michigan PBL Network, Feature Prep, the Kent ISD, the MySTEM Network, MAISD. And so when I was a teacher, I was part of this Future Prep group, which is a group of educators kind of really looking into innovation for before, during, and after school programming. And then as I've transitioned into this role, we continue to work with Future Prep through our ISD as a community partner when we're rethinking education from birth to adulthood, but also looking at education beyond just defining it as a school day. Because as we know, if we only rely on the school day as the single source of methodology to educate our students, that will not be sustaining. So, yep. So we got about 5 minutes left. Take a look here. Oh. And like I said, it's impossible in an hour for me to like really give you professional development on this. So this is more of a maybe an awakening session for you to be like, oh, hey, I wonder if we could revamp how we go about like it can be really, and I want to encourage you to start small. Um, because my mistake was I started too big, and I just had this massive amount of scope creep, and I had kids goofing around, and we were trying to design a new playground for the school, and it was just way too big. So what I did is I really started to scope things down, and yeah, you want to get to maybe something really big and cool, but cool is when kids are engaged and they're excited to get there, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Bob, are we going to work on our?" So, for instance, I got some English learners right now that they have an afternoon club, and my driving question for them is like, why do we come to this club, and what do we want to do while we're here, or something of that nature. And I don't work on it all the time with them, because sometimes we're just doing club things and club protocols and club activities. But they're like, "Hey, when are we going to work on our design?" And we're designing something for the spring of the club and the next year of the club. They really get excited on that. But it started with like the first day of the club. We designed, what do we want the month of September? And the club meets once a week. What do we want this club to look like in September? And really scaling it down, so they could kind of go through the process of um, a, having a question to prototyping to experience to feedback in a pretty quick fashion. And obviously, the younger the kids, the sooner they have to get to like, oh, I see why we did these things to be able to understand. Any other questions for today? So I'm going to share these slides just in case, because it looked like there was a few people that popped in late. You can imagine that, when change comes, we're trying to not build any walls, but create windmills and keep everything going with some staffing changes. So we appreciate your patience with that. And so we'll get these slides posted for you. There's a possibility I could do this here right now in just a minute. Um, I'm going to download these as a PDF, and um, stop the share and see if I can get it in the chat real quick. Give me 30 seconds. Should have done this before. I apologize. Well, we'll get it here. Okay. I think we have a QR code as well for the feedback survey. Okay, copy this link. There we go. All right, I'll throw the link to the slides in the chat, and then we'll also get them out as well. So Larry has put in a link as well as the QR code. Any other questions as people are taking care of that? Be happy to take on a couple other questions, or continue the discussion for a few minutes if you had something you'd like to learn more about. But take a look at this West Michigan PBL Works, and feel free to drop me an email anytime if you want to have a discussion about any of these topics, because I love helping people figure out how to get their kids. Most of you, especially I think in the out of school time space, we don't have kids in the driver's seat or in the trunk, but I think we can still all get better at moving them from the back seat to the passenger seat, and then looking for ways to take them into the driver's seat with us. Anything else here? Okay, Larry, anything else we need to cover with these folks before we send them on to their next experiences on their day?
Actually, no, that is it for the day. Thank you so much, Bob, for sharing your time with us and your expertise. We hope that everyone is able to take something away from this session today. And I would again ask, please take some time. It'll be very, less than 5 minutes to complete the evaluation. We use this information to help improve what we do and what we offer. So please take the time to fill out the survey. We would greatly appreciate it. But that is all we have for today. So as you go your way, just know that we appreciate you and thank you for joining us today.
Jenna, it looks like you can pop up and get the SurveyMonkey link as well. Larry, it seems like a couple people might be having problems with the QR code. So.
Okay. I'll put it back in the chat again.
All right, folks, have a great day. Thanks for stopping in. Realize this is hopefully a beginning and not the end. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'd love to chat with you more about this. Thank you all.